Lots, but perhaps too much.
Just bear with me, everybody. Share screen. Can everybody see the screen okay?
Yes.
Good, okay. So welcome everybody to this second session of part of our coaching around the organisational skills that are useful for people to start to think about how you build those in order to deliver scaled up nature-based solutions. This work falls within the Knowledge Hub on governance and co-creation, and it's very much something that we highlight in the governance section of the framework document. So those of you cities who are now working on your documents, this in particular addresses step 5 of the framework document in the governance section, which is what will you need to succeed? And it's identifying the conditions, skills, and reflexive monitoring and learning capacities to ensure ongoing success. And this really speaks to the fact that to scale up nature-based solutions is really often involves a very different way of working. So many of the barriers are around silo working, people working in their little areas, and scaling up nature-based solutions means much more partnership working, means much more working across departments. And that often means developing soft skills that don't often get talked about, but we are identifying those soft skills as a really important set of skills that people are going to need to think about and develop, that they'll help you to develop strategies for breaking down silos between colleagues that you may need to involve to build effective partnerships inside and outside City Hall. So the 3 UVT sessions are designed to support your development of these skills. And the first session last week was based on strategies for your individual well-being, especially in such a stressful time as we've had, and the new way of working that's thrown up. And then these next 2 are going to focus more around the interpersonal side and some of the skills and sort of self-awareness that you might need when you're dealing with those. So I'm going to hand over to Coralia now. I hope that was a fair summary and introduction. And yeah, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I will just upload my presentation in a minute. Okay. Okay, so is it visible? Is it what it's supposed to be? Is it big enough, or shall I? Okay, perhaps this is the best way. It is always a challenge to have the participants inside and as well the PowerPoint, but we will manage. Thank you for being here. I hope today will be a fruitful session because I planned a few information that I hope that they will be not just interesting to hear and to reflect upon, but also quite easily applicable, so to say, because this is what we want to encourage you to reflect on and to do in and after these sessions, to basically to build personal resources and to strengthen the interpersonal relationships and the collaboration that not only help you deal with the stress and foster your well-being, your individual well-being, but also bring a little bit some of that personal development or personal reflections into working relationships and into the working community. Of course, these being just webinars are mainly meant to share information, to share evidence-based information, so they will not help you build a certain skill in an hour and a half, but it is an invitation of thinking and of actually doing some of the good practices as we seen last time. So we have quite an offer here. We will focus on emotions. We will start with emotions because in any interpersonal encounter, we have emotions, different kinds of emotions, thousands, hundreds, tens of emotions in a day, perhaps not thousands, but tens of emotions in a day we feel from the morning to dawn. And the way we acknowledge and master our emotions affect the interpersonal relationships that we have, not just our own well-being. We will try to understand what are emotions and what are the components or emotions, and what kind of basic emotions are we talking about, and of course, how can we respond skillfully to others' emotions, and how can we manage our emotions. This is perhaps one of the most interesting parts of this first chapter. Then we will discuss about communication styles and see and focus on what does it mean to be passive or passive aggressive or quite aggressive before moving on to assertiveness, which is what we all need in interpersonal relationships. And we will focus on two very specific actions that we can do with our colleagues and with our stakeholders, or whomever collaborators that we encounter, which is feedback and active listening. So basically, we will, in our quest today of understanding how can we better our interpersonal relationships at work, but also in our personal life, because fortunately, this is a skill that we can transfer. So it's not that you're very good in communication with your spouse and very bad in communicating with your colleagues. It's something that you can easily and nicely transfer. Um, so we will look at also what is the process behind it, because of course we don't want to go into the depth of the psychological processes. This is not our purpose, but we do not want to go into the other extreme where we just point like 5 bullets on how to do things without understanding what is happening behind. So I tried to balance a bit of the theory and the underpinnings of the processes and the actual actions that we might do. So, first of all, emotions. There is tons of literature, literally. You can weigh actually the books that are written on the topic. So it's not an easy topic as well. And there are quite a few perceptions and conceptualizations, but we will try to pinpoint just the ideas that help us understand ourselves better, which means that when we feel an emotion, this means that this is a rapid response from our brains to certain stimuli. Sometimes we react to a memory that we have, or we, for example, we get scared that we forgot to do something at work, or we get sad because we remember something that we lost, or we see something that scares us. We see a person who talks not so nice with us, and we feel angry that we are not treated with respect. So what is also important is also the fact that our brain is like a very professional fortune teller, because it constantly makes predictions and tries to process very much information and all types of information, and tries to see what is happening ahead of us. And that is why the way we interpret what we see, what we perceive in the environment, is not just based on our physical perception or our sensory perception, but also on the activity, the work that the brain does, and how it is used to process the information, and what are the predictions that the brain does based on similar and previous context. We also have some bodily sensations. We might feel a butterfly in our stomach when we feel scared, or when we are angry, we might feel tension in our muscles, in our back, and in our arms. We feel like we are ready to fight, and also in our legs. And when we are sad, we might feel that we have a weight on our chest. Sometimes these sensations are not very clear. And definitely they are not like a checklist that we can always do. Sometimes it is difficult for us to understand what are the emotions that we have, and we might need a bit of work to understand which exact emotions do we feel, because we have certain layers, or we are afraid sometimes of our own emotions. I might be afraid to be afraid, for example, or I might be afraid to express anger in order to not be perceived as a bad person, or something like that. So, but being aware of our emotions is our very important step in emotional regulation, which is of interest for us very much. And this is why we will look. One indicator is the body sensations that we have. And then, depending on what we see, corroborated with what our brain already knows, we classify the stimulus as into being a danger or a challenge or an opportunity for us. And then we flight, we run from the situation one way or another, or we hide, or we approach the situation with enthusiasm. So this is just a very simple approach of understanding emotion, with the focus on the complexity of our brain. So the emotion is not something, it is something simple but complex at the same time, because it has, as I said before, body sensations. It depends on the context and how that context is, and our previous experience with that context. It also depends on the meaning that the situation has for us, the meaning that it has in now, in the present, the meaning that the situation has in the future. How do we interpret and connotate that situation? And then we move to the behavior. Yeah, sometimes when someone says something upsetting for us, for example, before a presentation, we might choose to minimize the meaning of that situation because in 10 minutes we need to present with enthusiasm something very nice to other people. So it will be a bit counterproductive to enter into a long discussion with that person, or to amplify the meaning. But we acknowledge it and we put it aside, and we encourage, we kind of put the meaning at the right place. We don't develop on the meaning, and we do not let it influence our behavior, so to say. So what emotions do we have? We have a lot of emotions, and we will see a various lists of that. It will take 1 hour just to read all the emotions that we have, so I'm not going to do that. But instead, I'm going to focus on our basic emotions, and not just to understand which they are, but why are they useful for us, and how can we recognize them? So I will just invite you to imagine, how do you think Ursula von der Leyen felt when this happened? I'm sure you're all familiar with her visit with Erdogan, when she didn't actually have a seat at the table, and her colleague, her Belgian colleague, also took the seat where he was invited. How do you think she felt in that moment? Was she happy? Perhaps not. Was she angry? Was she sad?
I think she was embarrassed.
Embarrassed.
Yes,
Yeah.
and angry for sure, but also try to be calm and not to show the emotion that she really felt.
Yeah, probably embarrassment and anger were emotions that entered in the first place, and perhaps a bit later was a bit of a sadness, or of why things are happening like that. Or sadness is when you experience the loss of something. You might feel that you feel the hope that things are all right, or should have been all right. So quite a complex situation, and quite a great deal of effort to maintain yourself composed in such a situation where the stakes are very high. And we will see how is this important in our emotion regulation, because we wonder sometimes, what does it mean to control your emotions or to manage your emotions? Does it mean to shut them down, to put them away? Perhaps sometimes this is useful if we do it for the very short time, perhaps in front of the cameras of millions of people. Perhaps it helps to just to maintain your composure, to control your behavior and minimize the intensity of authentic emotions, but then to go back and see what is there, and deal with the real anger and the real embarrassment. And sometimes it's more appropriate to put it on the table, what you really feel, and to try to make sense out of it. We see some happy people. This is quite an easy one, and hopefully we will see more and more happy kids around us now that the things are a bit more balanced, and they can go to school and see their friends, at least in some of the countries. And as we discussed last time, we are happy and feel calm and serene when we are exposed to nature, and we experience the joy of being there, and the wonder of nature. So quite a lot of stimuli we see. So, but the idea is now to understand, why do we feel emotions? And of course, we all want to feel joy, but um, and some of the positive psychology area promotes ideas and strategies on how to encourage well-being and to feel good and to experience good emotions, but also acknowledging that being emotionally balanced and experiencing well-being doesn't mean just to feel nice emotions, yeah, but to also to manage in a nice and in an adult way what we call negative emotions, and we see which are those. So it is important to know that when we are joyful, we are energetic, we are inclined to, and we have energy also to send and to express to other people. Joy facilitates creativity, so when we have a creative task, it is good to make ourselves happy, if possible, because we are more creative and innovative, and also we relate more easily with one another. Yeah, we because we have more availability to include the other person into the equation as well. Um, and joy sometimes might mean that we are very energized and we are ecstatic and we are very happy and we are feel like jumping out of joy. But joy doesn't have to be that intense always. We can feel joy, we can experience satisfaction, and we can have a more mild, moderate, intensity of emotions. So we have quite a range to move. What is important about fear is that it helps us prepare better. Sometimes they are labeled a bit too simplistically negative emotions. Yeah, fear, anger, sadness, but they are not negative at all. They are emotions. All are emotions, and each emotion has a role in happiness. I am not only happy if I stimulate my joy or if I seek joy desperately in everything that I do. No, I can also be well and experience well-being when I appropriately deal with my fear. And this means, first of all, acknowledge what is my fear about, what danger do I anticipate, and this means that I need to prepare better. Okay, I'm fearful that, and I have this fear that my presentation will be not well received by the participants, and because there is a great diversity, people have different needs, and how can I will be able to cover that? So what can I do? So I can prepare better. I can analyze this fear and prepare a presentation that addresses things that are essentials and rather universal, that can be applicable to almost every person attending the webinar. And also, when I'm in contact with my fear, I'm also more vigilant strategy moves more than the situation of a presentation, but where real danger might be ahead of me, and really can help me make life-saving decisions. And if I have a problem with fear, because sometimes we are not used to some emotions in some families, usually in families have preferred and least preferred emotions. Sometimes we live in families where there is kind of a pressure to be happy, so we do not cry, we do not talk about bad things, we only share good things, which can be nice up to a point, but from a certain point we can understand that some other emotions are not welcome, and we try to deal with them perhaps in a way that is not helpful. Yeah, or other families are focused on fear. We are too much anxious about everything, and this stops our or confuse us relating our way to explore and things like that. Sadness, of course, it's not a pleasant feeling, and it is about loss. And when we are in contact with what we lost, sometimes it is a sensation that we lose, or an age that we lose, or something that we had. Yes, Shreya, thank you for your comment. Yeah, I'm glad that you resonate with that. Yeah, because as children, we do not realize that very well. We realize it when we are adults and we want to be treated like adults in a relationship, or when we have a partner and we want to feel heard, for example. And as girls, perhaps in more culture than others, we learn that we are nice girls and females if we do not really express anger. Yeah, so if we express sadness, this is more appropriate and more adequate. And sometimes perhaps in relationship with our partners, when we really feel anger, we display sadness instead. So we withdraw, perhaps we cry, or we kind of distance from the other person. We don't talk very much, and then the other person comes and comfort us, because when you see someone that is sad, you want to comfort the other person, and then we say, no, I don't want that, it's not good for me, it's not well received, and then the other person gets confused, but it seems like you're asking this, and then we don't know what we are talking about. And when we grow, it is a bit difficult perhaps to be in contact with our real emotion first of all, and to understand, yes, I'm really angry that you did this, or that you talked to me in that way, or that you didn't keep your promise, or whatever, it didn't seem fair to me. So first of all, I need to acknowledge that I am angry, and that it's okay for me to be angry. Anger is not a negative emotion. What can be counterproductive is the way I express anger. Yes, if I shout, if I say bad words, if I put all my energy outside, then yes, perhaps this is not the best way to do it, and the communication will fall apart. But I also can learn that I can express my anger in a very assertive way and say, look, I didn't like at all the way you talked to me at lunch. I felt disrespected, and I would like you not to do that further on. Yeah, this is the way to express anger in a very assertive way. Yeah, but sometimes we are confused. First of all, that we think that it's not okay for us to express anger, or when we think it's okay to express anger, we go into the other extreme and express it a bit in a way that doesn't give us satisfaction. Satisfaction in a way that it means that every emotion has its own need. For example, when we feel sad, we need comfort, whether it is physical, whether it's caressing. Perhaps you perceived yourself unconsciously doing that. When you feel sad, you hold your own hand, or you feel like touching your body in a way that mimics a hug. Yeah, so this is because this is something that we need. So to be back at sadness, even if it's not easy, it helps us reflect on our own mistakes, perhaps. Yeah, and perhaps I'm sad that I have distanced myself from a friend. I'm sad that I've lost that friendship, and it's not pleasant to be there, but since I am there, I can make the most of it. Yeah, and even if that relationship might not come back in the way that it was, perhaps it's lost forever for some reasons, but I can understand what was happening to me, what can I do better, what was my responsibility in that falling apart, and uh, try to understand what happened. And also, when I feel sadness, I can empathize with those who have suffered a loss. And this is an important aspect in relationship with other people, to be empathetic, which we will see further on. Doesn't mean to give advice, or doesn't mean to do anything for that person, or doesn't mean to counsel it, or to do any complicated effort that sometimes we imagine or we feel pressed that we should do, but it means to be open and show understanding from the other emotions. And for the empathy, in a sad situation, it is important to connect with something that is relevant for you, that helps you understand what sadness is for yourself, and then to connect with the other who experience this situation. So anger, when we feel anger when our boundaries are not respected, when someone crosses across them, or when we experience something unfair that happened to us. This is when we are ready to fight. Yeah, hopefully not physically all the time, but this is our internal state. Yeah, because we want to defend what was broken, and we want to restore what was the unfairness that happened to us. And anger is a very energetic emotion. So sometimes, if we do not know how to regulate the intensity of that, this can be very problematic in interpersonal relationships, because no one likes angry, and sometimes angry um, badly expressed can endanger other persons. So if we have an issue with anger, we need to take it very seriously, and to try to understand how to how to balance, or how to minimize the intensity, because what happens with emotion is they can facilitate judgment, or they can cloud judgment. And when the intensity is too high, our cognitive span, how do I say in English, it gets narrower, and we basically do not have good cognitive processes. It's difficult to find options. It's difficult to perceive correctly the situation. It's difficult to react appropriately. So that is why in our emotional regulation we need to understand what is the intensity. The intensity is very high. So okay, the first step is diminish the intensity, because this doesn't mean that you lose the reason for your emotion. So if I lower the intensity, this doesn't mean that I don't feel angry anymore, or it's not correct for me to feel angry, but I just lower it so I can communicate it in a way that that the other hears me. Because what do I need when I am angry? I need to be heard. I need that the other acknowledge and hears very well what was unfair to me and which are my boundaries. And if I shout, or if I am overwhelming the other person, of course, from my desire to restore justice, or to feel heard, or to restore what was not okay for me, the other might get in a defensive reaction. Yeah, because it feels like a bit I'm aggressing the other one by the way that I'm aggressing my anger. And then the other gets defensive and rolls out strategies of defending from me, and I get the sensation that I'm not heard, I'm not understood. And then what do? I get even more energetic, or raise my voice. Perhaps it happens to you sometimes. I'm not sure if it's a familiar experience, but if it happens to you, acknowledge the fact that what is my need? What is my objective in my interpersonal communication? Is to be heard. I need the other person to hear what is okay and not okay for me. And I need him to stop doing that or not repeating that. So how do I maximize my chances for that? So I acknowledge my anger and I express it in a way that the other person can receptionate. I do not scare him away. So a very interesting idea that is documented and mentioned by Lisa Feldman Barrett, one of the most renowned researchers in the emotions field, is that what it helps a lot is the way we name our emotions, in the sense that if we just stick with our acknowledgement to the level that, okay, I feel bad, or I feel angry, or I feel not okay, this will minimize the way we feel. First of all, that if we leave our acknowledgement of our emotion at this level of generality, we might be not very sure of what do I really feel. And if I don't know that, then I'm not sure what do I really need for that specific emotion. And moreover, it says that this strategy of what she calls it granularity, in the way that when I feel angry, yeah, perhaps if I give a bit of time and try to understand, am I irritated, am I annoyed, or am I angry, or am I frustrated, or trying to think in terms of synonyms, if you like. This also encourages the cognition to step in. And every time the cognition steps in is a very good friend and a very good ally in dealing with emotions, because you process it a lot better, what is happening to you, and increases the chances to find the right solution for you. Because it's not just about wording and synonyms, but it also about fine granulating your emotions, because it might be different if I perceive myself frustrated, because this means that, okay, something is blocking my reaching an objective, and I need to understand what is that blocking and how do I remove it. With the other nuance, for example, when I feel irritated, yeah, these are different, but are in the same area of being angry. So if I take a bit of time to reflect on that, this might help. And what she says is, learn many words for emotions. And this also can help our children when they learn words and when they explore their own emotions, to help them do that. And I saw the kindergarten teacher, because we had some online kindergarten activity, so to say. I don't know how to call it, but for a 4-year-old online kindergarten was quite interesting. And I overheard the teacher asking children, and how do you feel? And a child said, I feel okay. And she moved on and explored, what do you mean okay? What does it feel to do you feel sad, or do you feel happy, or do you feel satisfied? Or I'm not sure if she knew about the theory, but this is the way to do it, and not to be satisfied just with okay or not okay, because it helps also children do, and ourselves as well. So we can choose. I put a link here with 100 or something of all known emotions, so you can get familiar with that. But also in your own language, perhaps you can find synonyms, or to try to translate what is put here in this chart. So I would be very happy if one of our Dutch colleagues can explain what gezellig means. I know the translation, but I hope it's correct, because it's from the article. Marlene, would you like to share?
I can give it a go. It's the first thing that popped up was the English word cozy. But it also means that when you are with a group of like family or friends together and you are having a good time, you call that gezellig.
Gezellig. Okay, so sorry for the pronunciation. I practiced a bit, but obviously I'm still far from it. Yeah, it was here translated like togetherness. So the idea of being together, and also,
You can also be together when it's not gezellig.
I'm sorry, what?
You can also be together with people when it's not cozy, like you don't have a good feeling about it. So gezellig really means that it's good to be together and you enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. Good to be together, togetherness in the sense of the good of being together. Yeah, some of them are very hard to translate, but the point is why these are pointed here, because the author recommends learn new words that are not directly translatable in your language, because it will help you relate with the feelings that you know, because we all understand what you explained, Marlene. Perhaps in our language we do not have a word for that. In Romanian, I don't know, I don't have a translation, but learning this helps me name an emotion that I feel at some point. So Enochi, I'm not sure if someone from Greece or who knows Greek is here, but anyway, I will translate it as it was in the article. It means major guilt. Yeah. In Romania, I'm not sure, for example, if we differentiate, we have guilt, not major guilt. I mean, it's not the word for the depth of a certain guilt that we have. And also dor is a Romanian word that it can be translated in missing someone, but missing not in the sense that you have a void, that person is not here, because this is kind of the meaning in English, but it's a combination of despair and desire at the same time. You are desperate that the other person is not here, but you really feel the desire that she would be here. So this can be also a very fun exercise to look for other words, and really helps in managing our emotions. Because the story, our story with emotion is so complex, we do not have like 3 buttons or 5 buttons that we can press and regulate ourselves. We need to construct um, um, strategies that helps us on the long term. Yeah, this is our main purpose. And sometimes, yes, we have strategies for the short term. For example, if I'm very angry at the student, for example, because the I don't know, he spoke in a disrespectful way, it would be very good for me to take a 1-minute break, or to breathe for a few seconds, and to regulate myself instantly before I do something that might be not respectable out of my part. So sometimes we need techniques, and some of them we discussed them last week, that can help me regulate in this moment. Yeah, but then after I shut the Zoom or the Google Meet, and I'm still in contact with my anger, I need to process it more thoroughly. So that is why we do not have buttons, but we have strategies that we practice them. It's like, not when I'm the most angry person, I start learning new words. It doesn't work like that. It's like, oh, today and tomorrow I will look for some of these words, and develop strategies that help me build personal resources that create me a more balanced way to receive the emotions that sometimes are more powerful in the here and now. If you would like to connect on Mentimeter like we did last time, all the credentials, I think, are in the, yes, Patricia put them in the in the chat. If you would like to connect and uh, to mention in which professional circumstances do you need to manage your emotions the most. What is the first situation that comes to mind when you meet with certain stakeholder, when you have a presentation, or when you feel that someone is acting rude towards you? Which would be like the most mm, vulnerable or important situation? So when you have presentation or in relationship with an authority, okay, keep this in mind and observe and make notes on what do you think from our discussion is more useful for this concern that you have. Good. So the big question is, how can we manage our emotions? So it's not an easy answer here, but there are some solutions very easily applicable. So first of all, it doesn't mean that we only need to experience positive emotions. As we said before, this will not be authentic, and this is not the point. And inhibiting negative ones. No, every emotion is very helpful for us if we make the most of it and understand them and integrate it in our life experience. And managing our emotions doesn't mean to be neutral, cold, logical, and have only an analytical attitude motivated only by facts. This doesn't mean regulating our emotions. This is sometimes people think, especially if you work in the army or if you are a surgeon or if you have if you are in professions where you feel that letting your emotions be expressed will affect your profession, you might go into this type of framework, but it's not really like that. It might work for a while, but in terms of personal well-being, sometimes burnout appears or certain cynicism or things like that. So um, what is important to understand is when we manage our emotion, our interest is to, our goal, our purpose is to integrate them into the decision making process. It's not to put them away and now we only think, we do not feel. No, this is not realistic. And when we do that artificially, the emotions are bouncing back. So we need to understand, how do we make emotions and cognitions friends, so to say. And this is here what matters is the importance of our goal. What is our goal? What do we want to achieve? And also it means to control very intense emotions, especially when they can hurt us or other people. So when they are too high, we need to know, as I said before, to lower the intensity so we can process them. And also we need to know the ability to choose how to express the emotion now, in the here and now, as we've seen Ursula von der Leyen. Yes, was it appropriate to express her emotion then and to share with Georges Michel and Erdogan the way she felt embarrassed? That perhaps not. Yeah, but this doesn't mean that she should put away those emotions forever. It's just that emotion regulations also means that sometimes you need to maintain your composure in a certain very difficult moment, but also to come back to your authentic feelings. Yeah, especially when they are very powerful. So just some ideas on how to manage our emotions. One is what I already said about emotions: fine granulation. So learn more words in your own language, learn words from other language, make fun while trying to pronounce it, share it with a friend or discuss it with a friend. This would be a nice experience. And there is one nice example here that we are all familiar, but because when we are afraid and when we feel emotions, we said that we are butterflies in our stomach, and this is quite a well-known expression. So one way of recategorizing what we feel is, first of all, acknowledging, yes, I have butterflies in the stomach, it is true, but we hear this advice: make them fly in formation. Yeah, like in the picture, it's like it is what it is. You have butterflies, you're very nervous, but put them in a row, put your ducks in a row, make them fly in formation. I found it very insightful, this recommendation, which exemplifies recategorization, which is a technique. Sometimes we need to do a mindful acceptance. This doesn't mean that we need to accept things that are bad in our life, in the sense that we feel helpless, but it means to accept that yes, it is a reality that some people disappoint us, or a certain person didn't keep her promise, or a certain the fact that I lost the quality of the friendship with my friend, it is like that. It is a loss. Yeah. So this is mindful acceptance of the realities that I cannot change, at least now. Yeah. If I lost the quality of a friendship with someone, it's not something that I can solve now. I need to acknowledge that this is it. And sometimes I choose to leave it like this and put it in a memory of what it was, or try to repair it. This is something else. But I will accept, and accepting, I repeat, doesn't make me powerless. Yeah, doesn't mean that, oh, I accept, I have nothing to do, everything is external. No, but just, yes, in the here and now, the situation is not that bad, is not that good, sorry. Sometimes it is helpful to self distance from the situation. It's like you are, doesn't mean an outer body experience, but it means to be a fly on a wall, and look at what is happening to you. Yeah, and try to see things a bit in perspective. What if you were an observer? What would you see of what is happening? Yeah, so try to look from another angle, yeah, to see the situation, and also to reappraise it. And this is a very nice technique, which emphasizes the more like the lessons that we learn. Okay, I did a mediocre presentation. Yeah, people were kind of disappointed. I don't feel very well about it. I feel sad. I feel disappointed in myself. And it is like that because I got a feedback that kind of confirms that. Not that so that the others define me, but they are relevant. Yeah, when in this kind of performance. So it will be difficult to acknowledge my sadness, but also more realistic and authentic than saying, oh, but they didn't pay attention, probably they didn't even listen to me, or to try to explain away my failure, so to say. Of course, I can find pros and cons and find some adjustments, some arguments that save a bit my self-esteem in the moment, but also acknowledging, okay, if they were disappointing, if they didn't understand, what can I do better next time? Yeah. And this was a very nice experience that I had in my third class this semester. I teach leadership with my third year students in the psychology specialization, and it was really a difficult time because the kindergarten were closed for about a year. We worked in the house with our daughter, 4 years old daughter. So you can imagine how well the preparations for some of the classes went, or even the classes with several interruptions and so on. So in this third class, I wasn't really composed. I had nice information, but it wasn't well structured. So basically the students didn't quite understand for an hour and a half, what am I saying? I placed long phrases, I didn't give enough examples, and I built the habit of asking at every course to ask them for feedback so I can adjust things in real time, not just the end of the semester. And they were a bit afraid to to speak in this online format, and they didn't know me very well. It was just the third class, and they're not really used to express criticism and so on. But they really said it, that okay, this we didn't understand very well what were the main points, because it was kind of a flow, and some of the phrases were a bit long, and the words were complicated. And I said, oh, it was not easy for me to understand that, because the first thing is, oh my God, but I'm teaching for over 18 years. I'm not allowed to do these mistakes, yeah, regardless of personal situations. So, but I put down this thought and gave a bit of an empathy of the situation that I'm in, with the trust in myself that I'm really doing the best that I can. And sometimes things are not going well, and this is what it is. So I anchored that in order not to be frustrated by low self-esteem, and encourage them to tell me exactly what were the bad points, and in order for me to understand what can I do better. and how can I focus on the things. Of course, I knew them, most of them, but it was important for me and for them to have space and to give a negative feedback in a nice way. And they were very pleasant surprised, and to see that I listen to them and I do not get defensive and explain and try to excuse myself or something like that. So I listened it and put it into practice, and they were very appreciative, and they gave me very nice feedback. And they first of all, they understand that feedback works, and it's something that it's worth investing it, because when you take time to give specific feedback, this, even if it's not pleasant, it really works and it helps in the relationship, especially if both of us are willing to make an effort. You, if you want to give me critical feedback, to give me to take time to be assertive and not to offend me, but to tell me what went wrong, and me to anchor my self-esteem and not to let my desire to feel good be not receptive to feedback. So in interpersonal relationship, when we regulate ourselves like that, even if it's difficult, and even if I was sweating and not feeling the most prized teacher of the year, I integrate that and acknowledged it, and try to do better. And the relationship with the student bettered. And also I felt very good about myself, because I was able to model a good behavior, and to model how to take criticism, and how it is okay to give negative feedback, and it's okay to regulate ourselves like that. And it's not about power, and the teacher doesn't know better. The teacher is allowed to be wrong and is allowed to be receptive, and we together we build a course that we like and we are excited about. Okay. Now my flies are not running information, because I'm looking at the time and all of the topics that we have, but let's hope I can put the information before we end. And okay, so also we, as I said before, managing emotions, sometimes we do what I said before, like small actions that I do in a here and now. But most of all, my concern is to develop personal resources that can, it's like create a fund, a general fund, a general strength that I have that will help me take things in a more nuanced way. So and one good practice that is so well documented is gratitude, is to find a way, not necessarily every day, because it doesn't have to be like, you know, another task that we have, but 1 to 3 times a week, if you feel if you take time to write, it's also important to write. This journaling technique sometimes helps a lot, to put down what are you grateful about. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be wonders. You might be grateful that that your child is healthy, or that you are healthy, or that you were able to eat your preferred meal today, or that you buy something nice. So or that you had a funny conversation with your partner. So whatever you're grateful about, if you anchor it, and of course if you can do it together, this helps you build personal resources. And of course you can do it with your colleagues, even in online. You can even schedule a gratitude meeting where you share what are you happy about, what are you thankful about today. Also, it helps to remember how well did you do in the past. So you were in difficult situations before, you surpassed them. What did you do? Did you get support? Did you document it better? What did you do sport? What helped you the most? So anchor past behavior that helped in different situations. And also to take perspective. Yeah, so for example, if you're anxious about meeting with your boss, and you're afraid that she will find the needle in the haystack in what you're in the report that you're doing, think about how important will this issue in 5 years. I mean, how relevant is for my future perspective. And as we discuss about perspective, which leads us to the well to our attention to other person, because emotion regulation is not only about us. This is the first step, yes, to acknowledge and to deal with my own emotions, but also to create space and understanding for the other person. And this means that sometimes we need to be aware that we perceive, say, different facets of the same reality. And a lot of our or misunderstandings are based on the fact that we forget about this. It's like for us, it seems like it's a law that all of us see the square or all of us see the circle, and sometimes we just forget that we perceive things differently. But this doesn't necessarily means that one person is wrong or is lying. It's just different type of framework. And I will invite you to listen to this video. Please let me, it's 2 minutes. Please let me know if you are able to hear it. Yeah, you can have the link as well, so you can see it as many times you want. I have seen it 1,000 times perhaps, and then never gets old, so to say. It's a very nice video that reflects really what empathy is about, and how sometimes we simply don't see it and we do something completely different. So what is important to take away is to know that emotions hold important information for ourselves, and other people are sharing that too. And that when we want to make an effective decision, this means to integrate emotion and cognition, not to separate them. And if we ignore our own emotions and the emotions of others, we risk losing relationship projects and ideas and so on. So moving on from this very nice approach to emotions, but absolutely insufficient reported to the complexity of the topic. But I just wanted to give you an overview of how fruitful can this field of understanding can be. And we move to a bit of a more specific and concrete strategy that helps us in relationships, interpersonal relationships. So this is active listening. And this is a reflection that I will leave it on the slide and reflect it and ask you to do it afterwards, because we are running a bit out of time. So I will present just briefly the fact that active listening is to actually to be able to hear the word spoken, and this is not related necessarily to having hearing or not hearing problems, but to really pay attention of the meaning of the words and try to understand them, what they mean, and also to be able to relate to the speaker's frame of reference, to try to understand where the speaker comes from. And here is very important to have a friendly curiosity, because sometimes when we are bored or when we anticipate and say, oh, the other person will tell me again the same thing or the same problems, we basically shut the way we are available to listen. So try to be a bit friendly and to pay attention to nonverbal cues. And this is very interesting to know that a good part of the literature of emotions and of communication try to understand what are the nonverbal cues that help us understand other people. And sometimes we were happy to decipher and to say, oh, but when a person is surprised, it should look like this, or we see these in movies and TV series, for example, like Friends. If you're about at least 40 years old, you might have seen this when you were a teenager, and so on. So when we look at the TV, we see that the emotions are very clear. When someone is sad, it is a very expressive phase, or surprised is very easy to understand. But in real life, it isn't like that, is it? And sometimes the experiments show that we think that we show this kind of faces in interpersonal relationships, but in reality our face doesn't move that much or doesn't move in that direction. So we need to pay attention to nonverbal clues to see something that we can bring into discussion, in the sense that, oh, I've noticed that you frowned when I asked you that question. Is it something that you have in mind? Rather than translating to ourselves, oh, that person is angry because I asked that question, because we might be very wrong in interpreting with such false accuracy this kind of signals. So what does it mean also is to ask questions. Basically, this active listening boils down to this, and to create an environment where the other person feels okay to share what he's thinking, even if perhaps these are not things that that are aligned with what you're thinking. And sometimes we think that active listening means to say to approve, like everyone is saying it. It's like sending cues that we are listening, but sometimes this can be annoying if we do this repeatedly, and if we only do that, or do not speak at all. It's like we don't interrupt because we don't want to, this will be rude. No, we interrupt. Of course, we don't go over the other person, but we kind of interrupt when we need to get more information. So one question for you, if you go to the Mentimeter as well, why are we bad listeners? If we are sometimes, and I think at least sometimes we are. What can be the reasons?
For me, the Mentimeter doesn't refresh. I don't know if others have the same problem. Oh yeah, now it is.
No, yeah, it was my fault.
No patience here.
Mhm. So quite a diversity of reasons. Mhm. Distraction seems to be in the center of it. Yeah. Also, when we already have an opinion, we are quite sure of what the other person is saying. We don't listen that much. Or time pressure.
Can we also see, I wasn't in the last webinar, so maybe I don't know, but can we also
Yes.
see the outcomes of the Mentimeter? And
Yes, you don't? Oh, I wanted to share. Okay. Now you can see because it says that I'm sharing it. Yeah?
Yeah, now we see it.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so this is a very good awareness exercise, and also to see um, um, what are the sometimes the reasons are temporary. Sometimes we are really too busy um, to engage in a conversation, but active listening doesn't need to take long, or doesn't require a lot of effort, but at the same time it requires some effort. And of course we don't live in an ideal world. We don't have to actively listen to everyone all the time. What is important is when we have a relevant conversation and we feel that we are distracted, or we feel that we don't like what the other person is saying, or we don't find it interesting enough, but at the same time we need to reach a consensus, or we need to do something together. It's good to know, okay, but how can we optimize this process of listening, because otherwise we will not reach a common goals. So it is important to understand some of the filters that we use. Yeah, sometimes we only seek information that in the other responses, information that confirms what we already agreed, or what we already know, and this very much limits, especially if we want to think something outside the box, or if we want an innovative approach. Yeah, this can very much lower our way of doing this with other people. Also, we might have some biases, some distorted ideas in our group, because this is the way we do it, and we think this is the only way that works, and we kind of want to hang on to that. And sometimes we are right in the sense that this worked before, and why should we do it otherwise? But in terms of innovative thinking, this is the idea to do things a bit different. Uh, Also, we have irrational thoughts, like reading the other person. Sometimes we think that the way the other person is expressing himself non-verbally means that he doesn't like, or he's not trustworthy. And I just explained very briefly that leading ourselves to according to nonverbal cues really leads us into a mistake, our own interpretation, because it's simply these are not reliable, and we need to be very attentive when we do that. Also, of course, when we have problems and or where we are bored or fatigued, we don't have internal resources to do that. But this doesn't mean sometimes we can get engaged for another half an hour or an hour to active listening, or we can postpone the interaction if it's important and we cannot do it like that. Okay, so what is more important here is, first of all, to clarify our intention when we listen, to understand, why am I listening? What is my interest? If I'm a supervisor, if I'm a professor, if I'm dealing with a certain stakeholder, what do I want to achieve? I want to understand their needs. We want to reach a consensus. I want to gather information, because the discussion is not just for having a discussion. Yeah, it's with a purpose. So I need to be aware of that purpose. And we can use several techniques. There are much more than presenting here, but these are just anchors where I can use techniques like paraphrasing, where I explain in other words what I heard. It's not just repeating, because this will not prove my understanding and my interpretation. So by paraphrasing, I'm also checking the content of the information, and I'm also transmitting to the other person that I really paid attention and tried to make sense of it. So I address the cognitive relationship with the other person, but also the interpersonal one. And I would say, let me see if I understood correctly, or it looks like whatever. So when someone says things that I'm not sure what they mean or what are they aiming, I can understand. When you say that you are not satisfied with our programs, what is it that you don't like? So I invite to specific ideas that I can address further or in this discussion. So what do you think about this idea? Does it suit your needs? So I invite you to reflect on your needs in order to evaluate what we're doing together. And the third technique that I can do is to ask for more information. So to say, it is an interesting idea, please tell me more. So give me an example of what a successful event would be, so I can understand what you're aiming for. Yeah, so if I practice those and see what works best for me, that I can encourage my active listening. And even if sometimes I have some prejudices, or I have not so perfect internal states, because I will I will focus on this type of behaviors that will help me understand what is happening. So another idea, and I will bring it back into the next webinar, because it is important. Another way that we can improve our interpersonal relationships is about feedback. And I just want you to communicate two things about that. Is that feedback needs to be contingent. It means to be given in the here and now. Okay, not in the very second, but in pretty close to when the things are happening. Yeah, that's why in organizations, when feedback is done once in 6 months or once in a year, this becomes quite inaccurate, because we don't remember, ourselves do not remember what we did a few months ago, and neither our supervisor. So let feedback be more flexible, not in just hierarchical relationships, but also between friends and colleagues, because we can adjust in real time and benefit from our change, from this change in real time. And it should be focused on behavior. So what we can do, how can we fix it if it's a problem, yeah, or what can we do in things that are in the ways that we can translate our ideas into actions that we can check if they were done or not. The folklore or the pop literature sometimes recommended what is called the sandwich feedback. When you start with something positive, then you go with negative, and then you close with positive. This is not working. This is not a good technique because it can be perceived as inauthentic. It's like you perceive that the other person is only focusing on the negative part, but covers it with positive just to make it more easy to swallow if we talk about sandwich and all. So don't be afraid about negative feedback. If you adjust your emotions, as we said before, and if you focus on solutions, you can deliver negative feedback, and just negative feedback in the here and now in a respectful way. But we will discuss more next week about that, just give you some ideas about that. So when we think about communication styles, we think about passive. When we sit and are more or less recipients of what other people are saying or doing, we are not very much aware of our needs, or we don't really think that we have a say in things. As opposed to aggressive, when we think that we have all the say in the world and it's our right to say anytime, anywhere, the way what we feel and how we feel, and that we think that our needs are more important than other people. We have also the passive aggressive, which is not really owning its anger. We are passive aggressive when we gossip a bit. We don't say anything in a meeting, but after we are in a hallway, we said, "Oh, look, but did you see what our colleague just said? Or how unfair, or how unrude." So, or I very much dislike that idea. Yeah. So we kind of misplace our aggression in that, and we become assertive when we know what we want and we take into consideration our needs, and also consider at the same time the needs of the other person. So it's a fundamental expression of respect translated into specific behaviors. So what is important here is to when we are assertive, we sometimes are in the position to ask questions for ourselves, and to make that request focusing on what we need, but also giving them the other space for and the right to refuse or to say their words. And sometimes we need to be very clear about what we want, and sometimes to repeat it if necessary, and to be as precise as possible to request specific behaviors. This is the assertive criticism is important when we want to give, for example, negative feedback, because when you criticize someone, your purpose is not to feel the other one, to make the other one feel embarrassed. This is not helpful for anyone. Sometimes we do that without intending that, or without knowing how to do it differently, or because ourselves experience that in our raising. Perhaps in school, our teachers were not very good with feedback, our supervisor at our work, and we simply do not know that. And by a miracle, we expect that if I give you a negative feedback and you feel ashamed, this will translate in you being more competent and willing to do your job better. But it doesn't work like that. Criticism helps other people when you explain what was not good, and you help the other person do things better, and try to find specific behaviors and specific support that help him do better. And these were some exercises that I will leave them in the PowerPoint as well to reflect upon, but also we can do them next time, because the assertiveness is also related to team, and how can we strengthen our collaboration in the team. So it will be appropriate as that, not to mention the fact that I didn't plan very well the timing, so this would be perhaps the main reason, but it will not be inappropriate to do it the next time. Sorry, I am getting a bit anxious by the fact that it was a bit too much information for 1 hour and a half. So also sometimes we are criticized, and perhaps not in the nicest manner, by other people. And what is important here is, as in my example, which it doesn't mean that I treat all the criticism that I receive in this very nice way, where I can share to other people. Sometimes I take things badly, or I do not do it with the other person. But what I learned myself, trained myself to do, is to, even when someone criticizes me, when I put aside the tone or the aggressiveness or the rudeness, and try to put it aside and to understand that this not belongs to me. I do not want that in my experience. I try to take, okay, but what was the grain of truth? The reaction was not appropriate, but what I didn't do better? Oh, I didn't deliver on time. Okay, so it's natural that the other person is mad. It's not natural to react like that in an inappropriate way, but this part is something that bothers me as well, the fact that I sent things at the last time, and things like that. So I also can agree to the fact that yes, I'm sorry. Indeed I didn't send it in time, and this is a fact. This is the truth, regardless of the excuses or what happened to me, why I wasn't able to do that. Especially if I do this regularly, so I accept it. I accept the fact, but not the ballast, not the criticism that is not okay. But I accept the fact, and I want to reflect for myself. How can I do better next time? When things are ambiguous, I will ask for specific information. When you say that I didn't do a good job, okay, but what exactly do you mean? And what do you refer to? A certain project or to a certain report that I did? If you didn't like, would you care to explain me what was wrong, or what do you think that are points of improvement? And of course, when I'm blamed for something that I didn't do, I will back up my opinion and absolutely reject what you're telling me. um, okay, so before we leave, I would like you to go back to the Mentimeter, and of course, regarding the personal styles. And as I said before, we will point this assertiveness information at the beginning of the next module, because these are important and relevant for our personal development, interpersonal relationships, and team. So I don't want them to rush them too much. What is important is to, first of all, to understand your needs, because if you know what you need, this will help you be more assertive if necessary. And to first of all be aware of your preferred communication style, because as we are some preferred emotions, sometimes it's it's easier for us to become sad rather than angry. It's the same thing with communication styles. We might have learned in our childhood or as young adults that being passive aggressive brings us more benefit than being assertive, yeah, for example. And this is not something that we did consciously, but this is something that we can adjust, especially when we can anchor our assertiveness, especially when there is something important for us in our relationship with our spouses or with our children. This is important to anchor assertiveness. With our child, it is important for me to help her be assertive as well, and not to be rather passive aggressive or otherwise, because I model it unconsciously. Perhaps she will take some bits of that, but as much as I can, I would like her to encourage. I have all the interest in the world to be assertive with my partner, because I want my needs to be understood as an adult, as here and now, and to negotiate as an adult and not as a girl. So if we move back to the Mentimeter, please, for the last minute, no pressure, but there is only 1 minute, no pressure at all. There are a few questions that will help us understand what happened today. And And how can we improve for the next time? Please tell me if you see the screen. You should see the Mentimeter. Yes. No. Yes. You should see the slide with on your on the Zoom as well. The name, one useful idea that you got from this webinar. Do you see this on the screen? Yes. Okay. Good. Okay. I will move the slide, but you can still access the previous slide if you need more time to write. And I will go back. Mhm. Okay. Mhm. Mhm. Yes, I will correct the rushness, the rush. Yes. If there is something that you would like to say with voice or otherwise, in 1 minute before we end this meeting, or something that you think it would be useful for the next time, the next week.
Coralia, I really, if you don't mind,
Please.
I really like, I feel like there's a story building. So over these 3 weeks, it feels, you know, I guess I can see how things fit together, which is really valuable. So it would be interesting to know if any of the cities, and if you have capacity, you know, would like to go into some of these things in more depth as city teams, maybe. Perhaps there's a way we could facilitate that.
And I would like to thank you for your sharing your personal experience, because that was very inspiring, and that the challenge you got and that you overcome it, and the difficult situation you changed to your strength. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I will keep it in mind in such situation.
I'm glad that it was helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then I think we'll end here. Thank you for your involvement and engagement and attention. You will receive the presentation, of course, with all the links, and you can also write me asking for more information or propose ideas for the next meeting. So feel free to use this channel of communication as well. So it's not restricted to the Zoom meeting. I apologize for being late for 6 minutes, and I hope to see you in good health and in good joy next week. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
You're very
Thanks
welcome.
for all.
Bye bye.
Bye.